So, if you're struggling to build the body you want, but you currently work out, it more than likely is coming down to your testosterone. On this video, I'm going to show you the exact diet I use for myself, I use with my clients in order to completely optimize testosterone 100% naturally. It has to do with the types of foods that you're focusing on. There are foods that are going to increase testosterone and optimize it, but there are also going to be foods that destroy testosterone. And on this video training, I'm going to show you exactly what this diet entails. It's basically the upgraded diet. So I'm Nick with the Upgraded Man Project, and we'll get right into it. So this can work whether you are looking to build more muscle or you are looking to burn fat and get leaner. Your testosterone is the most important hormone in your body. It's going to dictate your strength. It's going to dictate how lean you are. It's going to dictate your drive, your energy, your focus, your performance. And so if it is off, and you can clearly check it by data, you can check it by blood work, you're not just guessing. And that's exactly what I do with my clients. We run blood panels and we go based off what the data is telling us. That way we are not guessing, but this is the exact strategy I use to take my testosterone from around 300 to 400 all the way up to 927. And I just got that test done about a week and a half ago. So that's 927, 100% natural. Have never used SARMs, never used TRT. This type of diet actually works better than TRT, and more often than not, and I have worked with guys that have supplemented with TRT, more often than not, estrogen rises in the body. It's also can affect fertility. It can basically give you long-term impact. So if you're a guy like me and you are holistically minded and you want to do this as naturally as possible and you want to optimize as naturally as possible, this is the exact protocol to do so. But basically, the upgraded diet really comes down to ancestral way of eating. So you may have heard a primal diet, an ancestral type diet. There's a reason for it. Your ancestors did not go to a grocery store and get stuff that was in packages and then have all these different snacks and protein shakes and protein bars and none of that nonsense. There was food that came from nature. So that would be fruit, that would be meat, different animals, eggs, stuff like that. And when you eat like that, your body will respond and basically fulfill its potential. However, when you start to bring other foods in, you have too much bread, you have too much pasta, you have too much sugar, even things like soy and tofu. These types of foods will destroy your testosterone. They're going to increase estrogen in the body. They're going to increase inflammation in the body. They're going to destroy your gut health. So this is the holistic way of looking at it. This is not bro science, calories in, calories out. This is taking care of our digestive health, taking care of our hormonal health, lowering cortisol, naturally having good liver health. So now we naturally regulate estrogen. And that is why this type of approach can be so beneficial. But basically, the diet is super simple. All you have to focus on is protein, carbs, fats, and some good beverages. For protein, the number one source of protein for men is going to be red meat. You want healthy cholesterol because if you do not have healthy cholesterol, you do not have enough building blocks in your body to create testosterone. You need cholesterol to make testosterone. So by avoiding cholesterol, that automatically is going to sabotage you. So you want to focus on red meat, ideally grass-fed steak or grass-fed ground beef is at the top of the list, because if you have conventional beef, it's going to have a ton of antibiotics in there. It's going to have a ton of hormones. And when those things come into your body, they will wreak havoc on your own hormones. They will destroy your gut health. And that is why some guys need to use things like TRT because they are not using this type of approach. You want to focus on things like bison, venison. These are natural grass-fed animals. If you think of a deer is not eating bullshit. A deer is eating grass and leaves and stuff that is outside of nature. Same thing with lamb. Pasture-raised eggs, extremely important. Conventional eggs could be okay. Pasture-raised eggs, way better. tons of micronutrients in there, vitamin K, vitamin D naturally, so your fat-soluble vitamins. Plus, it's one of the healthiest sources of cholesterol that there is. You want to eat the whole egg, not just the white. Wild-caught salmon, very important. You're getting healthy omega-3s. You're getting good protein, very easy to digest. And yeah, if you wanted to, you can throw in free-range chicken. Chicken does not have the most micronutrients. Red meat actually does. Chicken is a little lower on the list, but it can still come in as a high-protein source. The carbs you want to focus on primarily are sweet potatoes and yellow potatoes. You possibly could put white potatoes in there, but I would stay away from things like pasta, bread, grains. These things are technically seeds. They are not meant for the natural human diet. If you go into a wheat field, do you know how many grains you would need to harvest in order to be able to make a thing of pasta or to make a thing of dough? You'll be out there forever, especially in regard to the natural environment. You're never even going to find that many plants growing together. And so this is why a lot of this stuff wreaks havoc on us, because not only that, a lot of grains and cereals are sprayed with glyphosate. They're sprayed with toxins. And when those toxins and pesticides come into your body, that will sabotage your hormones, because most pesticides and most toxins are xenogenic. That basically means they will raise estrogen in your body naturally. They are sort of estrogen mimicking chemicals. And so as a man, you do not want to put more estrogen in your body. That alone is going to sabotage your testosterone. White rice is actually a much safer grain. There is no fiber intact. There's no hull intact. And you do not want fortified white rice. You do not want enriched white rice. You want natural white rice, basmati, or jasmine. However, keep in mind, it has a lot of carbohydrates, and it will spike your blood sugar. The only time I recommend to have white rice is directly after a workout. That way you'll be able to spike your insulin correctly, and then all the healthy protein that you're eating is going to go directly into your muscle. Fruit is also a super healthy carb. You could focus on hydrating fruit, melons, cantaloupe, honeydew, watermelon, pineapple, things like that. Berries are fantastic. They're much lower in carbohydrates, much lower in sugars. If you want something more dense, then things like bananas and dates can be a great addition to what you're currently doing. In regard to fats, you want to focus on avocados and cook with only healthy fats, because when you're cooking with bad fat like canola oil and seed oils and things like that, they are actually creating actual inflammation in the body. The quality of the food that you ingest and the quality of the food that you eat will literally make the cells and make the tissues in your body. The higher quality you're putting in, the higher quality you're going to get out. Focus on things like coconut oil, grass-fed butter, once again, way better than conventional butter. Grass-fed ghee, so that's clarified butter. Some people like to put this in their morning coffee, especially if you deal with hunger cravings in the morning, if you're trying to fast. We're going to get to that in a second. And also beef tallow. Beef tallow is basically, if you've ever cooked like a stew and you put it in the refrigerator, that white sort of hard part, that white fat, that technically is what tallow is. It's very safe to cook with. In regard to beverages, we're not drinking soda, we're not drinking juice, we're not children. We are grown men, and we are drinking water. We're drinking sparkling water. We're drinking black coffee. We're drinking green tea. Not only that, these things are safe to drink during your fasting window. And that leads us into the next equation. In order to do this correctly, one of the main changes I did to my diet and my lifestyle was I started to intermittent fast. I've been doing that for a very long time, years already. It has been the number one game changer, because what that automatically does is automatically cutting one meal out of the day. But regardless of calorie deficit, regardless of less hunger and more energy and more focus and more productivity, first of all, let's think about our ancestors. Do you think that they went out on a hunt on a full stomach? Do you really think they sat there and they had their oatmeal with their whey protein and all this nonsense. And then they said, okay, guys, let's go try to find the antelope today. No, I don't think that's what happened. I think that there was no food, and I think that they had to go out and get the antelope. And if the hunt was unsuccessful, guess what? They brought back no food. So fasting has been in our genetics for thousands of years as men. We are hunters. It has been with us for thousands of years. The more in tune we eat with nature, the better your body's going to perform, the better your body's going to look. You're overall going to feel your best. Plus, your testosterone is naturally going to be high. Think about our grandfather's generation. These guys never needed TRT. They never needed to inject exogenous hormones into themselves because none of this shit existed. This didn't come out till recent times where we have tons of packaged food and processed food and chemicals and nonsense. So just 2 generations ago, none of those guys needed to use anything in regard to TRT. Fasting is also important because it's naturally going to boost your testosterone. It is naturally going to boost your growth hormone, because every time you eat, even if it is super healthy, you are going to spike insulin. And every time insulin spikes, guess what? Test goes down, growth hormone goes down. And so we want to be able to balance our hormones as good as possible. Same thing if you're under a lot of stress. Too much cortisol going up, that's going to plummet your testosterone. And so fasting is one of the keys in regard to the upgraded diet, and that is how you are going to get the best results possible. I put a little chart here because some guys have different schedules. Some guys like to eat different ways. And so here's a couple of different ways this can play out. So if you're here and you want to build muscle, you want to pack on mass, maybe you're a little too skinny, I still recommend fasting because of the hormone benefit. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have 3 palms of protein. So if you go here, if you're eating steak or ground beef, sometimes this can be an entire pound of ground beef, right? You're ripping open the whole pound, you're eating the entire pound of ground beef. Or you could have most of the pound of ground beef with like 1 or 2 eggs. So that's a prime example. 2 palms of carbohydrates. So if you're having sweet potatoes, if you're having yellow potatoes, that would be in a cup tan. If you're having white rice, 2 cup tans of white rice. And then you want to wait at least 4 to 5 hours between meals, and then you're going to have dinner. Now, if you're lifting in the morning, I would recommend lifting fasted if you can. If you want, you can have a little bit of raw honey and some sea salt right before you lift. That's going to be able to balance your blood sugar out. And then right after you work out, that is when you want to sort of pound down your first meal of the day. If you're a guy and you want to lift at nighttime, I still recommend to fast in the morning. However, what you're going to do is you're going to have your lunch, and then you're going to wait a few hours, and then right before you go to the gym or right before you go to work out, you're going to have a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of raw honey, sprinkle some sea salt on it, and that is all you need for pre-workout. When you get home, you want to be able to have a post-lift meal. If you're getting lean, what you want to do is you want to remove one of these hands of carbohydrates. So if you're currently doing 3 palms of protein and 2 cup tans, only remove 1. So now you're having most of the plate is going to be steak, most of the plate is going to be ground beef, and then a little bit of rice or a little bit of fruit. And when you start to eat this way, you're not going to have to count calories. You're not going to have to track every single bite of food that you eat, because automatically when you eat this way as well, because there is so much nutrition, you're not going to deal with the hunger cravings and the snack cravings that you're probably currently facing. And the only reason you're facing that is because you're probably eating things like breads, like pasta, like protein bars, maybe chips, pretzel, anything that's refined is going to constantly make you more hungry. These foods are designed to keep you addicted. They are not designed to optimize your health. Even most protein bars on the market, unless it's something like Epic, if it's like a whole like venison bar or a beef bar, that's different. But if it's like nonsense and it's got whey protein, and most protein bars are like glorified Snickers bars that are docked up with good marketing. Just because they add a little bit of extra protein in there does not make it healthy. So you could definitely try this out. You could start to see how this feels. Additional upgrades. If you want to upgrade what you're currently doing, so yes, food is extremely important, but food is not all. Sleep is going to be extremely important for natural testosterone. You ideally want to be sleeping 7 to 8 hours every night, very deep sleep. Keep the room cold and as dark as possible. I use a sleeping mask. That way it keeps all the light out. You want to keep the room temperature ideally between 63 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Seems to be probably the best temperature across the board, because if it's too hot, it's going to affect you getting to sleep. You're going to be tossing and turning. When the room is nice and cool, you are going to get nice deep sleep. In regard to supplements, we're not talking exogenous hormones. We're not talking bullshit, all types of pre-workouts and all that nonsense. We're talking about actual nutrients. The primary nutrients for men are magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D. Ideally, you want magnesium about 200 to 400 milligrams a day. For most people, seems to be pretty adequate. Zinc, I would not go overboard. 20 to 50 milligrams a day is pretty adequate. Vitamin D, that all depends on your blood work. Do not just go and start supplementing with insane amounts of vitamin D, because there is a thing as too much. The same thing with testosterone. Just because you inject testosterone, you can have too much in your body. And I've looked at guys' blood work where their testosterone is 1,800, 2,300. It's not being monitored correctly. And when that happens, your estrogen is going to rise in your body. Most of these guys are not in the best shape possible. They're injecting a bunch of bullshit, and then they still don't even have abs. It's not the best way to go about things. And I know, because I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of blood labs from my clients over the years. I know exactly what the long-term impact is. And so if you're going to take vitamin D, it is safe to do 1,000 to possibly 5,000 IU a day. If you are concerned, you could always get vitamin D checked at your doctor. Or with all of my clients, I actually run their blood work. I include their blood work. I'm a functional nutrition coach, so certified in functional medicine. That's exactly what I do with my clients. And then we custom tailor everything to the labs. In regard to stress reduction, most guys are under stress. So if you're under stress, that's not going to help, because cortisol is your stress hormone. If cortisol is too high, that's going to plummet your growth hormone. That's going to plummet your testosterone. And so ways you could reduce stress are yoga, walks, journal, go in a sauna. These are all ways that you can sort of keep your stress levels down. We all deal with stress in everyday life. There's stress in running a business. There's stress in regard to relationships sometimes. There's stress with family. There's stress sometimes even sitting in traffic because you're late to someplace. So these are all ways that you can start to balance out your stress. Also, you want to avoid toxic hygiene products. So if you're using shit like Old Spice deodorant and some of that nonsense, you're actually putting a ton of chemicals directly into your body. You're putting aluminum directly into your body. Heavy metals are going to sabotage your hormones, especially testosterone. If you're spraying cologne, most cologne is very toxic. Most cologne is going to boost estrogen in your body. And so there's natural remedies. You have things like essential oils. You have more natural deodorants. There's an amazing brand out there like Native. And this is all stuff I help the guys that I work with. I help them pick out some different brands and some of the best stuff possible. But definitely avoid some of the conventional stuff. At least look for aluminum-free or paraben-free or any of that type of stuff. Could be really good. But Native has a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good essential oils. There's a lot of good natural toothpastes and things out there. You want to stay away from as much chemicals as possible. And also, if you're like me and you've been fasting for a while, then you're going to want to use this strategy. I call it a shock day. The reason is, if you start fasting, if you've never fasted before, you're going to get amazing results. But if you've been fasting for a while, maybe over 6 months, maybe a few years like myself, you're going to need to have a shock day. So one day out of the week, let's say we go Monday through Saturday and we do fasting in the morning. Once Sunday hits, don't worry about fasting. Have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner. What that's going to do is it's going to re-shock and re-stimulate your thyroid, because if you fast too long, or if you're in a calorie deficit too long, you're going to plummet your thyroid hormone. If your thyroid hormone gets impacted, There's something called an HPA axis. I'm not going to get too in detail here. I have trainings on this, but your HPA axis is connected to your adrenal glands, and your adrenal glands will dictate how testosterone is created in your body. So if basically they're all on the same circuit. If your thyroid goes out, then that's going to impact the way your body makes testosterone, if that makes sense. With that said, I wanted to share a little bit of my personal backstory as well as some clients that I've worked with. But basically, I grew up pretty shy. I had low confidence. I was picked on. I grew up as a chubby kid. And then as I got to about 19 years old, I started clubbing. I was drinking. I was into drugs, ecstasy and Molly and stuff like that. So you could see I was starting to get fairly lean there, but it was not healthy by any means. In my early 20s, I ended up getting sick. I had real bad gut health. I had joint pain, and I had this horrible skin rash all over my body. This is because I was eating like 5-6 times a day. I was not aware of my gut health. My gut was a mess. I had bloating, I had gas, I had fatigue, and I was eating shit like I would have an entire bowl of oatmeal, and I'd put like Skippy peanut butter in there and like 2 scoops of whey protein, and I thought that all that stuff was going to help me build muscle, and that, as you can see, it really didn't help. It actually made me sick. And then in my late 20s, I was working out 6 days a week. I was actually eating the gym bro way. So I was eating like 5 times a day still. My gut health started to clear up. I started to eat a little better. I started to take probiotics and stuff. But as you can see, my testosterone was still low. So even though I was working out 5-6 days a week, it almost didn't even look like I went to a gym. I don't really have any definition on my abs. My arms are sort of flat. There's no definition there. And you can see there is a clear difference. Now I'm about to be 36 years old. This is the most recent picture. So that is following the upgraded diet that I'm sharing with you here. I stay like that all year long. You could look at any of my videos, any of my shorts. I am constantly in shape all year long. And it is mostly because of this diet and this way of eating, this way of holistic living, getting good sleep, keeping stress down, taking the right supplements, magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, maintaining my gut health, occasionally looking at my blood work and seeing if anything's out of order that needs to be focused on. And because of that, I have a natural high testosterone of 927. Just to give you an idea, in functional medicine, the ideal testosterone range is between 700 to 1100. If you're under 700, that's not optimal. If you're above 1100, that's not optimal either, because that's when your estrogen will start to rise within your body. So around the 1,000 mark is a very good target for most men to hit. And with that said, this has not only worked for me, it has worked for my clients as well. So here we have Sean. Sean's an MMA fighter. Thanks, bro. I've been following the diet we laid out every day. Already dropped 2% body fat. Thank you. You're the man. Here we have Brian Murphy. Brian's a tattoo artist. When he came to me, he was this picture on the left. He even had trouble lifting like 15, 20-pound dumbbells. He was not in a good spot. And after working together for a few months, he started to pack on mass. He got much stronger. He got much more confident. One of the best transformations I've ever seen in my life. We have Jake here. Finally hit under 200 pounds. That was a big goal of him. Thank you so much for your guidance. You give me so much so far, and I've never been so motivated. And then we have Brandon, breakthrough man, best I've felt in years. Not crazy, not too much energy, but was able to have energy all day long at a family event. And then the next thing he's talking about pH. So we did a little stuff in regard to his pH. His mineral balance was not too good. So that's something that we ended up focusing on. And then we have Jason here. Jason happened to book a call with me, and just in the course of us having a call together, he had an epiphany about what he had to do, the next steps he had to take. So at the very least, the call in itself was super valuable. But with that said, if you're still watching this video, if you've stuck with me this entire time, if you want to speak to me one-on-one, we can get on a video chat together. You could book a call. Just hit the link below this video. You'll find it in the description. Just pick a time and date that works best for you. We can get on a video call and we can go through and I can see if you're the right fit for this type of approach. However, if you're still looking to eat a bunch of bullshit, if you're still looking to make excuses, or if you want to do a different route, if you want to go down the TRT route or whatever the case is, this is probably not the best fit for you. And that's why we have to have a call first. But if you're a serious-minded guy and you're looking to do this holistically, you're looking to stay as natural as possible because you value health before aesthetics, then this is the right path for you. And I can help you to optimize your testosterone naturally. Not only that, get in the best shape of your life, build muscle, burn fat, get lean, and also undo some of your vices, undo some of your bad habits that are holding you back, and ultimately help you upgrade yourself. That's what the Upgraded Man Project is all about. That's what I have for you on this video. I'll hopefully see you on a call soon. If not, I will see you on the very next video.